So I get a lot of questions about being in chemically induced menopause. So a bit of background on chemically induced menopause stage of the treatment plan for PMDD. What happens is that once you've gone through the first stages of the treatment plan for PMDD, so that includes antidepressants or the pill and being on HRT. Oh, and of course, taking life easy. Don't forget about taking life easy. If that all that failed and you're still experiencing PMDD and it is compromising a lot of the quality of your life, then you move on to the GNRH analog injections. Now, there's three types. One is Zoladex, one is Prostrap, and the other one is Decapeptyl. And with these three injections, they essentially do the same thing. They're hormone blockers, and they force your body to go into menopause. And it essentially blocks your ovulation. Now, I mean, I'm not complaining. Like, it has significantly reduced my PMDD to, say, PMS or extreme PMS. But it's also had its own challenges too. And like with everything, you have to go through it and see how each individual responds to it, etc., etc. Now, so many women have DM'd me, and so when I have been sharing all my stories and talking about like being in chemically induced menopause, or when I'm going to the GP to go get my injection, and them seeing and noticing the difference, it has made in the quality of my life. It has encouraged them to also want to do the same, because women just want a better quality of life, which we are very deserving of. But unfortunately, it has to be at the expense of shutting down our ovaries, because there isn't enough research on women's health and on PMDD. Like, it's so boring. So prior to that, I was on HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy. And what happens is that once you are on GNRH analog injections, you need to have add back hormones, i.e. HRT, to kind of prime your body to be able to prepare it physically or physiologically and biologically to be able to manage the effects of your body being forced into chemically induced menopause. Now, essentially, menopause is that you've come to the end of your, reproductive cycle, and you no longer experience periods. Most people on these GNRH analog injections don't have periods. Of course, I'm going to be an exception to the rule. And I know there's a couple of others as well. But I will go into a little bit more detail of what the side effects are of being in chemically induced menopause. Now, I will share a picture of the needle of what Zoladex injection looks like. It's like a really thick needle gauge, it's about that big. And it has a pellet, and it goes into your stomach, and it just literally is angled in. It has to be done with a little bit of force. And they just release it, the needle goes inside, and the pellet is this is classic brain fog, by the way. It is released into your system. And with me, I find it takes effect within like 40 minutes, which is amazing, because there's 2 doses of Zoladex. There's a 3.6 and a 9 point something or 8 point something. Sorry, my brain fog is not allowing me to remember. So there's 2 doses. One is a higher dose and one is a lower dose. The lower dose, which is 3.6 or 8, can't remember. Please don't hold me to account for it. Is 3 point something. Now, that's a monthly one. You can have that 4 weeks of every 4 weeks. It is licensed for PMDD. The only way that I was able to access it was I initially went private to a clinic that treated PMDD, and I was referred to the PMS and menopause clinic in Chelsea and Westminster, who basically said, yes, it's time for you to move on to Zoladex. because we've tried and tested all the treatment and you've been on it for more than 6 months. So for that reason, yes, I think we're in a position now to explore this as a treatment for your PMDD. It was a very hard decision for me to make, to start Zoladex injections, because I was really wrestling with, do I want kids? Like, the thing is, when you're on Zoladex, it blocks off your ovaries and you can't conceive. But when you stop taking them, then after a few months, like, everything goes back to normal. So it's only a temporary blocker. With me, knowing my luck, the injections wear off really, really quickly for Zoladex anyway. So the 3.6 or 8, whichever it is, literally wears off after 3 weeks. If I had a really bad cycle, it will wear off out at about 3 weeks. If I've made sure that I've kept my schedule light, life has been very, very easy to manage for that cycle, I can stretch it to 3.5 weeks. Now, I've asked for it to be administered earlier, but GPs object to it. Chelsea and Westminster Hospital had to instruct my GP to be able to prescribe and administer it. Prior to that, I was having to advocate for myself, get the prescription, then source the injection, then book an appointment with the nurse and all of that. So if I didn't do that in a timely fashion, I would be in full-blown PMDD, experiencing suicidal ideations, experiencing such debilitating symptoms from PMDD whilst I'm trying to navigate this at the same time. So it was a lot. But finally, I reached a place of equilibrium and routine with it, because my GP wrote to the local gynecology team of my borough and they said, yes, she is able to have Zoladex every 4 weeks for the lesser dose, every 3 months for the higher dose. So the higher doses can only be administered every 3 months. I tried the higher dose. It wore off after 6 weeks. That was just half the time. So I couldn't believe it. I was just like, this is insane. Like, so I have to wait 6 weeks. I have to experience 6 weeks of PMDD before I get another one. So I basically opted for the monthly injection as a better alternative, because it wore off between 3 and 3.5 weeks. At least then, if I did have to manage PMDD, it was the difference between maybe 4 or 5 days sometimes. So I've, reached a routine with it, but to me, it's just not sustainable. I mean, the monthly one is working for now. I did speak with Chelsea and Westminster about it, and they have suggested that I start Decapeptyl at a higher dose, but I haven't quite started it just yet. Reason being that my GP requires a shared care plan with the clinic. But there is a lot of challenges around that as it stands because of bureaucracy. And I'm not risking compromising my treatment and risking my health being compromised, my mental health being compromised with PMDD coming back until there isn't a robust treatment plan in place. So I'm in the process of sorting that out, and I will talk about that whole situation in more detail because it is very, very complex, and it actually needs more help from women to be able to lobby their MP, write to the hospital about how good of a service they are and how valuable the service is in helping women like me and us survive. Because if you're under their care, you know the difference it has made in being able to improve the quality of our lives. So that's a different topic that I'm going to explore in the near future. But my experience with chemical menopause as a whole, physiologically, hasn't been the worst, to be honest. Or is it PMDD? Definitely not. So did I ever experience hot flushes? No. It has occurred when I haven't been very consistent with my progesterone. So if you have an estrogen dominance, then you will experience hot flushes. But I've basically created a balance where I have estrogen patches twice a week, which I've changed at 100 milligrams, called Everol. And cyclically, every 14 days, I take progesterone, and then I stop taking progesterone. And that's basically kept a fair balance in my menopause symptoms, or chemically induced menopause symptoms. But am I in chemical menopause if I'm still having periods? You know, it's up for debate. But again, it's got to the point I just don't care anymore. I've literally resigned myself to accepting my fate with what's going on because I'm still having a better quality of life. Is that the right attitude or approach to it? Maybe not. But when I've been in a state of survival for 7 years leading up to this, you just kind of get what you're given. Like, I'm in an abusive relationship and cycle with the healthcare system, treatment plan, and PMDD. Like, I need to pick my battles. And sometimes I don't have the capacity to take it all on. So as it stands, I am in the process of speaking to my GP, writing to the practice manager on being able to support me in getting a shared care plan with Chelsea and Westminster put in place. And I think the biggest fear for me is, what if Decapeptyl doesn't work? And if Zoladex is working, let it continue to work. So I just felt a pang in my left ovary. So as I'm talking, like, I feel my left ovary just panging. So, sorry, I am in ovulation. So my chemical menopause symptoms look like really sensitive gums. I never imagined it. I never imagined having such sensitive gums. So I think they have recorded over about 500 to 600 different kinds of menopausal symptoms that women experience. The ones that I've experienced, thank the Lord, it's not 500 to 600, have been the sensitive gums. The first thing that I really noticed was the heart palpitations. I couldn't believe I was having heart palpitations. Like, it wakes me up from my sleep, so I have a lot of sleep disturbances. So as a result, I am on beta blockers to help manage my increased heart rate. It doesn't happen all the time, but it will happen a lot more, ironically, during ovulation. And leading up to menstruation, they are increased. So I experience a lot of heart palpitations. I do still experience brain fog. And I think the other thing that I have noticed is that I'm a little bit weaker. Reason being that when you are in menopause, like, you need to do strength training. You need to build muscle mass to be able to hold your body. And being on GNRH analog injections actually has an impact on your bone density. So once a year, I will go for a bone scan to check my bone density. That's it's a requirement when you're on this treatment to be able to monitor it. I do have blood tests occasionally, but because I also experience things like low V12 and I inject myself with that, I take a whole bunch of additional supplements to help me. And I think the three main things that I have to take religiously without fail to support me in this duration of my chemically induced menopause is magnesium, zinc, and vitamin D. But I take vitamin B12 anyway, but these are the main supplements that are non-negotiables. And when I mean non-negotiable, I mean without fail every night. I have to take them because magnesium helps and facilitates my sleep. It helps to allow me to have a better quality of sleep, even if it means it's 5 hours. It's really a must. It's a non-negotiable. Vitamin D, we don't take nearly enough as we should. They're literally microdoses that I use are microdosing of vitamin D. We live in the UK. The fact that there's a blue sky behind me is some form of miracle. We are not exposed to the sun, and I'm not always in a position to go away every month and get some sun exposure like I usually have done previously. So for that reason, I've made a conscious effort to take more vitamin D. So I will take approximately 30 to 40,000 I use every day to be able to help sustain that. Zinc I take daily, B12 I take monthly as an injection, and it really does help manage my symptoms. There are a lot of supplements out there which you can buy to support that function, and I have noticed that I go in between them. So sometimes if I'm being a bit lazy or slacking on being consistent, I will make sure I take all the other supplements instead, where I haven't got a whole bunch of pills in my hand that I'm having to back every night. I make sure that I will always take some form of supplement, which does help me, because the thing is, I am still experiencing PMS in some way, shape or form. I still have brain fog. I do experience lethargy. So as we're getting older, if you are over 30 years old and you're not taking supplements, start taking them. It's really important for you to start taking them. It doesn't matter whether you're in perimenopause, have started your journey, have PMDD, have PM. It does not matter what condition you have. Even if you're the most healthiest person on this planet, take your supplements after the age of 30. It is a non-negotiable, because it will help you function. Like, I think we aren't taught enough the importance of having supplements in our diet and not just limited to the food intake. If you are a healthy person and you feel like you're managing that with your diet, great. But I think if you know that you don't do enough, like, supplements are the ones. Like, you have to take those. There is another supplement that I take, but I can't remember off the top of my head now. I'm sure it'll come back to me. But this is classic example. I have brain fog. I can't remember anything. I'm not as sharp as I was, say, a week ago. A week ago, I would have been able to recite it backwards. But today, not so much. So those are the symptoms that I am experiencing with chemical menopause. Is it a walk in the park? No. Is it better than PMDD? 100%. Like, I wouldn't change a thing. I do find it more appealing. I'm very grateful that I don't have things like hot flushes. You know, I see women go through that and I'm like, oh my goodness. I experienced hot flushes once when I had estrogen dominance. And the reason why I had estrogen dominance is because I went to Chelsea and Westminster Clinic, and I asked them, I said to them, I was like, why am I still having periods on Zoladex? And they were like, okay, let's try and increase your estrogen. So I said, okay. So I increased my estrogen, and within 6 weeks, I'd gained 3 stone. 3 whole stone, which I paid privately for to lose. So then 6 to 7 years prior to that. So you can imagine I was not happy. And I couldn't understand like what was going on. I was feeling better, but the weight gain was making me feel very uncomfortable because I was feeling very physically unfit and I had maybe mild brain fog. But when it got to the point where if I wasn't fitting in my clothes and that was like impeding on how I was feeling about myself, it kind of defeated the purpose. And as I was Googling, as you do, I realized that it was my increase in estrogen that caused me to gain all this weight. So I ripped off that additional patch off of my backside quicker than you can imagine. And I stumbled across finding out that women who are also in menopause were taking Mounjaro or GLP injections to manage their weight, and it decreased their inflammation significantly. Hence why I started my journey on it. So yes, my intention for taking GLP/Mounjaro injection was to lose weight, but it has so many more benefits. I will talk a lot more about it at another time, but my focus for today is what my experience has been like on chemical menopause. So if you are thinking about starting chemical menopause, this has been my experience so far. It's not perfect. You have to get the balance right. Do I feel like I've got there yet? No, because if I'm still having the injections and their efficacy wear off within 3 weeks, and then there is that 1 week window, 1 week is far more manageable than 6 weeks. It's a dance. It's a delicate dance, but there's a lot of things that you need to do to be able to support that, to be able to make it more manageable, to navigate. So you have to have your HRT. I did have a couple of people message me and say, went to Chelsea and Westminster. I said I wanted Zoladex, but they won't put me on Zoladex because I'm not an HRT. And I basically said, look, and they asked, like, were you on HRT? And I said, yes, I have been on HRT for over a year before I was able to be eligible to go onto Zoladex. Reason being, it's priming your body. HRT primes your body. That's the best way I can describe it. It's adding back the hormones that you need to support the function of blocking the hormones of your ovulation production, because estrogen does a lot of things. It has so many functions in your body. I will be sharing a post on all the things that estrogen does for a woman's body and its organs. It's not just a hormone function for our reproductive system. It has brain function. It carries our neurotransmitters. It impacts our liver, our intestines. There's so many aspects of it. So once I shared that, I think it's a really informative post of seeing what estrogen can do for you. So if you are on Zoladex and it blocks that production, then it can have catastrophic and debilitating consequences to your body physically. So this is why the treatment pathway has the stage which basically requires you to be on HRT prior to that. You also need progesterone, and they also do take testosterone. I take it as a gel, which was prescribed to me. I mean, I don't take it regularly. Reason being, I find I become quite aggressive on it. So when I have had the gel, I usually use it when I'm feeling a little bit weaker. And I will check all my symptoms. I will make sure that my B12 isn't due. I'll make sure that I'm taking my iron. That's the supplement I was talking about, iron. I think it's very, very important to ensure that you don't become anemic. Not that it's related to being on Zoladex. I think you have to have a balance of everything, and energy comes from being able to have all the right and correct supplements. And anemia can have really long-term side effects, and it can really compromise the quality of your life because of energy, lack of sleep, poor diet. You know, some people, majority of people, I can guarantee there isn't one person you don't know who isn't anemic. So I can't, I really struggled with iron. So I have like a vegetable supplement that I found from the US, ironically. And that's worked for me, called a blood builder. So when I have that and my B12 injections, my energy is great. So that's kind of like my litmus test for me to be able to gauge where I am at with my energy levels, because if my testosterone has dipped, I'll just use some of the gel, like maybe 2 pumps. I'll put it like on my pelvic area, like rub it in, and basically it will do its thing. I will feel stronger. Sometimes I feel a lot more alert. I'm a little bit more upbeat. I've got a bit more spring in my step. But at the same time, I notice it may be quite aggressive. And, you know, I'm not saying I'm aggressive, but I am, you know, I've got a lot of energy about me. And sometimes I think it's a bit unnecessary for me to approach things with the energy that I do and then add testosterone to the mix. You know, it's on steroids, and I don't need to do that. So I only take it occasionally, but it's always there as a backup. I've had it for about a year. I've had one bottle for a year and I still haven't finished using it. So I take it as and when. Have I been tested for what my levels are? No. Do I feel like I need to? Not exactly. So I think I listen to my body a lot. I'm very in tune, hyper in tune with my body, and I listen to it. And I think that's how I've been navigating it overall. So if you are thinking about chemical menopause, I would do your research, have a look at the videos that I've posted. DM me if you have any questions, if you have any apprehensions. But I think speaking to your GP is going to be useful if they are trained in it. If they're not, ask to be referred to Chelsea and Westminster Hospital for the PMS and Menopause Clinic, or you could go privately. Once you speak to someone who is qualified and trained enough in it to be able to give you the information that you need, then you can make an informed decision. It took me a couple of months to do that, but I got there in the end and I have zero regrets.